Tools of the trade. During this section, we are going to be discussing the critical tools that you need to succeed as a trader. Let's go ahead and start with the 7 steps to getting started. First of all, you are going to need to set up an account. Now, when you first are learning how to trade, using a paper trading account is highly beneficial because you don't have to risk your own money in order to be involved in the market. It's really a great way to learn how to place orders, how to use different option strategies, how to look at the charts and determine what kind of trade you want to use. I also found it really helpful when I was trying to learn from mentors and I wasn't familiar with the kinds of option strategies they were using. Using a paper trade account allowed me to copy trades without risking my own money. And you know, that's how I was able to stay in the game. And then when I started utilizing my own money, I had gone through a lot of that learning curve with fake money. So that's why I find it highly beneficial. The next step there is going to be to learn your platform. We're going to talk more about this throughout this video series, but certainly you do need to have basic understanding of how the platform works because you do not want to make mistakes on your platform and lose money for silly reasons. You also just want to be able to maximize the tool, right? So after that, the next step is going to be understanding the 5 key components of any options trade. We're going to go over that a little bit more in detail, but essentially it goes down to the fact that, you know, you really need to have a reason to get into a trade. You need to be able to identify that reason. You need to be able to identify a solid entry point with an edge, your target zone, and how and why you're going to get out. So that goes into this step right here, which is going to be identifying the simpler setup you would like to trade. The setup is just going to be the core reason why you believe that you have a high probability moment in time to get in. Because, if you don't have a high probability moment in time, that means you don't have a simpler setup and you cannot pass go. So, the next one here is going to be define your allowable risk. Before you place a trade, you always need to know how much money you're willing to lose or willing to risk to gain. After that, you want to be able to identify your simpler strategy. So, are you going to use a butterfly? Are you going to use a long call? Or are you going to use a put credit spread? And then, of course, you must execute upon your idea, which is the final step here. So, let's go ahead and discuss how to open a trading account. Now, when you're opening a brokerage account, um, there's going to be multiple things that you should keep in mind. I personally use Thinkorswim, so in my slideshows, you're going to see examples using this platform. The reason why I like it is because I just personally think it's the best options trading platform. You can also use TradingView, TradeStation, and Tastyworks. I'm not going to be the best person to discuss these platforms because I haven't used them, but I'm sure you can find additional videos within Simpler Trading and on YouTube as well. So it is going to be up to you to determine which one you would like to use. The reason why I use Thinkorswim is because I believe it to be the most robust options and charting platform. I am a pretty strict technical analyst, and so definitely need a really good charting tools. So I like Thinkorswim for that reason. I also love the options tools. So make sure you research the varying options brokerages, think about the amount of risk capital you have, and apply and request options permissions. Now, people always ask, well, how do I get approved for options? It just goes down to self-reporting what it is you know about options. I think that when you learn and you take options education, that'll give you, more knowledge to be able to select in there that you have some options knowledge, and that's exactly what I did to get approval. So, if you have any questions, you can let me know. But as I was stating, I like Thinkorswim. Um, this is by TD Ameritrade, and that's the platform that I use. So, when you're thinking about what kind of trading platform you need, it's really going to come down to these factors. So, you know, what do you actually need from a trading platform, right? Because you might say, well, I have no idea what I need. Well, here's a list of the things that you want to look for from a trading platform. You should be able to have some sort of functionality to create scans and watch lists. This is how you can do your research. You can identify trades and you can look for setups. So, you need some method of doing that. Next, if you are going to be a technical trader, which really all of us are, and that's what we teach, then you're going to need a platform that's going to allow you to analyze charts. So whether that's indicators and tools you can add on there, customize your settings, that kind of thing. You really do need that from an options trading platform. The most obvious thing here is going to be you need a platform that has an options chain. So there's been a lot of brokerages recently that have started adding options data. Their options chains are not going to be as customizable and robust as what some of these platforms are that are specifically for options trading. There's a difference between only being allowed to do calls and puts and only being able to see, the base options chain and being able to customize your options chain so you can see a lot of the different facets that I'm going to be going over throughout this class. So I'll show you a little bit more as far as examples go so you can understand, but those are things that we're looking for. You also want to have an idea of where you're going to do your reading. I know there's people that don't find this valuable, but I don't know. For me in my career, it's been really important to have an overall macro viewpoint of just what's going on in the world. I'm not really looking for trade ideas per se. I'm just looking at, hey, what's the housing market doing? What's the Fed saying? Are consumers spending money? That kind of thing. So I personally like CNBC, Fox Business, Wall Street Journal. And then, of course, you're going to need your physical technology. So computer, laptop, cell phone, apps, internet, all those kind of things. Let's just talk about the scans and the watch lists. This is what my scan and, well, this is actually my watch list, is what it looks like. So essentially, I have my top traded tickers over here. I have a little custom column that tells me which direction they're trending. I have the market percent change, which is going to be the overnight move, and then this is just the move during the cash session. I also have a couple other custom columns here that tell me when the earnings date is, how much the ticker has moved before earnings. But don't worry about that too much. Just giving you an example of what I like to use on my watch list. I also add into my watch list, if there's a squeeze or not, because that will tell me right away if there's a good trading setup. Next is going to be my scans. So I do like the functionality within Thinkorswim to run different scans. This is just an example of a scan that I have, a pre-earnings scan that will identify tickers that have earnings that are coming up in the near future. So just again, another example. Next, you are going to need something that has technical analysis and pattern recognition capability. Here's just a screenshot of my primary swing grid. As you can see, this is a chart of Broadcom. You have this nice pretty colors, you have your moving averages on here, you have your squeeze. I like to use a Turbo VZO. Anyways, just different tools that allow you to read which direction price is going, if the trend is shifting, which way momentum is going, if there's volume coming in or volume going out. That's going to be really important. Next is going to be the options chain. Here's a picture of the Thinkorswim options chain. In this screenshot, you can see that the layout is set to volume and open interest. This allows me to see what kind of liquidity we have in the options market, but you're also going to want to look at the implied volatility. You're going to want to look at the expiration dates to see if the ticker has monthly or weekly options. You're going to want to look at the current stock price, and then you're also going to want to be able to change the current layout so that you can see theta or delta or whatever it is you want to see in that options chain. And then as far as reading is concerned, research sources, I use my phone a lot. So I have, a variety of news related apps, and then I get alerts based off of different news related events on companies that I'm trading. I pay specific attention to earnings. A lot of this stuff is more just interesting than actually going to impact the stock market. But I do like to pay a lot of attention to, an article like this, like Macy to open four more smaller stores as strip mall experiment shows early signs of success. It's like, well, can I look at the Macy's chart? Like, is it bouncing? Is there something I can do with that? A lot of the times there's not, but I do need a source for most of my earnings related macro analysis. So the next piece of this is going to be the physical technology. When I first started, I just had a laptop and it was fine. I took it wherever I went. I could trade. I would leave work and I would leave at lunch and I would trade in my car. You don't need all of this crazy expensive technology, but of course, over the years, I have upgraded quite a bit. Right now, I have, desktop and I have five monitors right now. You don't need that many just to trade. It is helpful, I think, to at least have three. And the reason for that is because if you have at least three, then you can have one where you're executing your trades. You can also have another monitor where you have the internals up. This is just the grid where you can see how the market is moving throughout the day. So, if you walk away from your desk or I don't know what you do during the middle of the day, but I find it really important to have a one monitor dedicated to the market internals so that you can always see if the market's going up, if the market's going down. And then, you can have another monitor and you can use whatever it is you want. If you have the trading room, I always have the trading room on one dedicated monitor. You could use Twitter, you could use another, chart setup. If this is your monitor to execute, you're going to need one just to have a swing grid on for your analysis. Now, I have two more because I'm broadcasting. So I will have, one where I'm talking back and forth with the networks. They're calling me, trying to see, hey, are you ready for your segment? That kind of thing. And then usually I just kind of have an extra one unless I want to put another chart up here. So when I'm doing TV, sometimes I'll have, three different monitors with charts based on what I'm talking about or something like that. You don't need five. I have five because I have to broadcast. So I think if you can at least have two, three, I think that that's really helpful. Of course, you also want to have a solid internet connection. We have a Starlink backup. There's nothing worse than your internet going out when you're in the middle of trades that need to be managed. So that is really helpful. It's also really helpful to know how to use your brokerage on your cell phone. If you have the mobile app, it can be quite different from the desktop version. So, I do encourage people to figure out how to use that because if you need to close trades for some reason, that can be really helpful. That is what I have for you for this section on tools of the trade. Getting set up with a solid internet connection, an options trading platform, a computer capable of running your program, setting up your charts, and the options chain are all critical steps to take as an options trader. Your initial setup is what you're working with, right? And then you can upgrade as time goes by. You do need to make sure that you have enough power in your computer so that it's capable of running charting platform, but I've never really had too much of an issue with that. So thank you for joining me for this session. Um, During the next part, we will be talking about creating a trading plan. So I look forward to seeing you there.